did you know, I was just reading this the other day, that approximately 834,000 people in America refer to themselves as a financial advisor, wealth manager, wealth advisor, financial planner, something, a title of that nature. I also was looking, how many are actually pure fiduciaries? What percentage do you think?
25.
It's a little over
4%.
Yeah, so it's about 1 in 25 are actual true fiduciaries.
Explain what a fiduciary is.
A fiduciary is someone who has a legal standard that has to put your interests ahead of their own. Here's the problem, because I talk to financial advisors all the time, and I have yet to meet one in the last 5 years that says to me, Jim, I'm not a fiduciary. They all say I'm a fiduciary. Here's the truth. Most of them are fiduciaries part of the time. And, I like to say, I've been with Mimi for 37 years. In fact, today was the day I asked her to marry me in 1991.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, see, that's what I remember.
Yeah, smart.
And I'm not wearing green, which in elementary school would have meant I got beat up. But luckily today, I don't have to worry so much about that. At any rate, if I said to Mimi, I am faithful most of the time. I mean, Vegas sometimes, or a boys' trip, or, occasionally something goes, but, I'm faithful. How do you think that would go over?
Not well.
Not well. And the same thing is, you don't want a partial fiduciary, a fiduciary some of the time. You want a fiduciary all of the time. And it's funny, this disconnect, because when people were surveyed, 65% of people with a financial advisor said my financial advisor is a fiduciary, and yet only about 1 in 25 are actually true fiduciaries. Here's the other thing. Even a true fiduciary can get paid commissions from certain types of products, can get referral fees, can get different compensation that you would think they can't get. It just has to be disclosed in a big document that nobody reads. So I think one of the questions, if I'm listening to this call, that you should ask anyone who's working with you, who's in the financial arena, is just send me in something in writing that says you're a fiduciary for me in all circumstances and at all times. And then you might uncover that maybe it's a little bit surprising. The other issue, especially with having these types of advisors in the middle of the wheel, is the conflicts of interest, but also the AUM model. The most popular model for financial advice is the assets under management model. And I see why. You and I have talked about this before. It's one of the greatest business structures ever created. Because once they get your assets and they put their 1% fee or whatever it is on there, every year, let's assume your portfolio goes up 7 to 10% a year. Guess what their compensation does every year? Goes up 7 to 10%. Not at inflation, but better than inflation. The funds are sticky because it's hard to find out where where to move your money. If you have capital gains embedded, it's even harder to move your money. So that model has shown that clients are sticky. I hate to say this, but it doesn't take that much work, and you get paid great and your income increases. The reason why you need to be concerned and why the person in the middle of your wheel shouldn't be someone trying to gather your assets all the time is because it creates all these conflicts of interest. If I'm an entrepreneur, I own my building, I run my business out of there. If I say, hey, should I pay off my building loan? Is it better for the advisor if I don't and keep the money in the portfolio? Absolutely it is. So you have a conflict. Let's say I want to give a big chunk of money to charity. Same problem. Let's say I want to give something to my kids. Same problem. Let's say I want to invest in ways that they don't get paid. Same problem. So you have all these conflicts, and that's why often in the private markets that we already discussed, private markets aren't promoted much by traditional advisors because they can't get paid on those, so they don't want to promote those things. So anyway, those are a lot of conflicts in the assets under management model, and there is a better way, but that's some of the challenges with traditional financial advisors.
Yeah, I think just building on that, even a lot of people who have, like you said, 864,000 is what you said?
834,000.
So of the 834,000 that have that title, a good chunk of them are what I would call insurance agents. Because oftentimes you go and look at a Northwestern Mutual or someone's backed by one of these big insurance agents. They call themselves a financial advisor, but really what they're doing is they're out looking, who can I sell a whole life policy or some sort of overfunded permanent life insurance policy, because I get paid roughly 100% of the first year premiums as a commission. Once I land that client, I don't really need to ever talk to them again because, again, I'm not a fiduciary. I just have to give them a suitable investment. So oftentimes we have entrepreneurs come to us that have been sold whole life policies, and maybe they're paying $100,000 to $500,000 a year in premiums. And you say, that insurance agent, or let's call them the advisor, made maybe $100,000 to $500,000 commission upfront when you wired that first check in. And of course they don't know that because their commissions are not disclosed, and there's conflicts of interest with that. So I think that as we further talk through some of the issues with the financial advisor title or wealth manager, Are they affiliated with a big insurance company? Like you said, are they a fiduciary at all times? And oftentimes we'll see life insurance agents disguised wearing the cape of a financial advisor.
Along those lines of the insurance agents too, a lot of entrepreneurs don't know that commissions can be really should be disclosed and can be negotiated down. And when we work, because life insurance is a tool and sometimes it's the right tool, and for people to say they don't want to own life insurance, it would depend on their situation. But often life insurance is a product that people need to own. However, we require commissions disclosed and negotiated whenever we're working with an insurance agent who would be a spoke on the wheel, so to speak.
Yep. We talked about tax strategists, the issues that comes into play. Most CPAs, they do great work, but just their incentive structure is to file tax returns and to keep you compliant with the Internal Revenue Code and the Internal Revenue Service. And so if you think about that traditional model, they're going to be tax historians. They collect all the documents, they file the tax returns, they send you on your way. That's oftentimes what results in you paying way too much in taxes. So then the flip side is now there's this cohort of tax strategists who want to get paid a commission or a percentage of the tax savings while pushing all of the execution risk and all the tax risk onto you as the taxpayer, because you are the one who are signing the validity of the tax return that everything is true. So there, again, is a risk transfer there that they're getting paid for. So that's the tax piece. Let's what is another issue that we have in terms of when it comes to potentially having attorneys be in the middle of the wheel here?
Well, attorneys often are billed by the hour, and it reminds me of the old joke about the 35-year-old attorney that's out jogging. He's in great shape. He drops dead from a heart attack, goes up to the pearly gates, and he says, "St. Peter, there must be a problem. I'm healthy. I run every day, and I'm only 35 years old." And St. Peter says, "Well, according to your billable hours, you're 95. There's my attorney joke. But, attorneys go by the hour and sometimes by the part of the hour, and that can stack up. And then that also prevents you from calling when you need advice. And attorneys generally don't have a lot of experience with things like insurance, investments. They're very good in the legal. Depending if they're a tax attorney or not, they may or may not know some about tax. They're usually not the right for the middle of the wheel. And that's another thing that I think we should make clear is the middle of the wheel has to be well-versed in all these areas and has to go deep. So I can't tell you how many times I have had other professionals from other, let's say, brokerage firms say, "Oh yeah, we do that." And I said, "Oh, really?" So you take the tax return, you go into it in great detail, you run projections, you go to the CPA, you talk about strategy, you come up with tactics. "Oh, no, we don't really look at the tax returns." Well, you go through the insurance policies, right? You read through all the coverages, you talk to the agent, you decide whether to shop it, you help the agent decide what kind of coverages. "Oh, well, we don't read through the insurance policies." "Oh," and then you also look through every type of loan that they're taking and the terms, and you talk to the banker and on and on. You look through the legal documents, you talk to the attorney, you make sure it's reflecting the vision of the entrepreneur. And so to be in the middle of the wheel, you have to know something about all these areas, and you have to go deep with each area and deep with each professional. And that is something that's very rare, because I've seen a lot of AUM firms that say they do this because they know entrepreneurs want this, but don't actually do the work. It's really the old asset management program, assets under management, with this new wrinkle of the marketing. And I always say that that's like putting lipstick on a pig. It doesn't really change that it's a pig.
So if you're an entrepreneur, then two different people are telling you the exact same thing. How do you know who can actually do the work, who can execute this, who can be at the center of your fractional family office versus someone who's maybe more of a charlatan saying that they can, but really has ulterior motives?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, I'd look at testimonials, because entrepreneur testimonials will tell you what kind of experience they're getting. And second, I would ask harder to answer questions. Things like, tell me what you do when you review the tax return. Tell me how you review an insurance policy. Tell me what you do in concert with the attorney. Asking some open-ended questions, because someone who does this work is going to go deep on each of those subjects and be able to tell you specific things that they do for clients on a regular basis. If it's just lipstick on a pig, they're going to fall short when you say, "Walk me through the tax return, walk me through the 1040, the 1120. Tell me what you're actually doing as far as tax advice and how you work with my CPA to get this stuff done."
Yeah, and I think another thing is test before you buy, right? What can we do ahead of time? What can you add value to me as the entrepreneur so I can see what you're capable of? And of course, I'll compensate you for that upfront test before we drive. But before I get into a long-term relationship, let me see what your clear motives are and what your clear capabilities are.